Click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, or to the Telegram, definitely the Telegram, or the Sport Channel, join channel through the various other links. So Trump's Twitter clone, Truth Social, is going to be DOA. A couple of reasons. Well, first, what happened? The politicians on the right were using the communications network known as Twitter, which was controlled by left-wing globalists. So your communications to the public are in the hands of the political opponent, which would seem like an obvious weak point that almost everyone should have talked about and done something about years ago, but they just kind of let that one slide. He who controls the communications controls the narrative. You should have pushed for free speech on this new political town square, or went en masse to Gab, or created a state-run Twitter for free speech, which is obviously very important to Americans. But the politicians didn't do any of this. It never occurred to them, hey, what if someone were to run for office but got kicked off social media? Well, they're not going to get elected. Shouldn't platforms be guaranteed free speech zones? Isn't that so critically important to America? The government had 30 years to think about it. I guess really 15 years since social media really took off. The government did nothing to protect digital free speech. It turns out that the government is also terrified of free speech. Politicians usually are. So they did nothing. Even when people got censored, including Trump, they still did nothing. Why? Apparently they enjoy censorship. Trust your government or media as far as you can throw them. Yes, that includes our guys. But what about your guys? Yes, our guys are just as crooked and corrupt as ever. Democrats will rape your daughters and Republicans will rape your sons. So Trump gets kicked and he's got options. The best terms of service free speech platform, hands down right now, is Gab. Andrew Torba is very committed to free speech. The fact that it is not allowed on the App Store is an excellent sign. Trump already has an account there waiting for him. But Trump doesn't want to go to Gab, or Kushner told him not to, perhaps, because Gab has free speech, and parasites like Kushner run from free speech like vampires from sunlight. Politicians should not be afraid of free speech, but they are, which does not bode well for America, but you already knew that. So after Trump got kicked, there was Parler, Getter, that Pillow guy has got some kind of site. World Truth Video has got their video hosting platform site, which posts, admittedly, a bunch of pretty far out there videos, but some fun stuff also. But they also have their own kind of, I don't know what you call Twitter, that format. I guess it's a vertically scrolling, massively parallel social media platform. And Post, which is spelled P-O-A.st. I think this post is so small it's kind of pointless. I'm over there like, why aren't you just on Gab? They all have Twitter clone platforms. And then there's Telegram, which functions a little bit differently, but is also really awesome. But anything that goes through the App Store censors, so it's going to be controlled ops right from the start. Telegram's a bit different because, yes, it has, you can download it from Apple or Google App Store, but if you download it from telegram.org, then it bypasses the censorship. It's the app stores that will send you a message. This channel cannot be displayed on the apps that are downloaded from the App Store. You have to download it from telegram.org to see all those channels. It's the app stores that control 90% of traffic, and they are terrified of free speech. So thank God that they're looking out for us. I'm sure they're just angels of light themselves and not visiting Epstein's Island. Back in the day, you had to download software yourself, virus scan it, spyware scan it, and run. Your machine was constantly running malware, spyware, spybot. See all these kind of you had to learn how to use a firewall and configure a firewall. Back in the day, computers were a little bit different. The end user was a little bit more sophisticated. Now things are kind of done for you, but when things are done for you, it's like, oh, we're going to censor. Oh, I don't want censorship. Oh, well, everything's going through the App Store. It's like, well, everyone's using the App Store. It's like, maybe we should go back to the days of downloading from websites and virus scans and that kind of stuff. Or, just go back to the days of free expression. The goal is not a right-wing site that censors. It's a site that doesn't censor. which is Gab. Anyone is free to use it. Trump is aware of Gab. He has he's mentioned it as an option along some other sites when he have to get kicked off Twitter. But ultimately, Trump cannot handle free speech, and he can't or doesn't want to handle the heat from the media who will attack him based on some of the people who use Gab, who use it as a free speech platform. One would assume that the media would be pro-unfettered speech. No, those days are long gone. That is not the modern media. Over the years, parasites have slowly wormed their way into the media and slowly corrupted it. Now you have the media itself supporting censorship. That's how you know the media is nothing more than globalist propaganda. To be fair, the creation of the digital media environment destroyed the real, kind of the real print media. At one time, it's like at least they had the appearance of trying to be the media, and that all changed about 20 odd years ago when things went digital, and they realized, it's all the media knows now is clickbait, fly to Epstein's island, and charge the adrenochrome. So a few years ago, I know the media was in trouble when they started to use the biologically wrong pronouns for people. I know that's a little thing, but it's not a little thing because it's a piece of dishonesty. There's the objective truth, which the media should relentlessly pursue. The objective truth, no matter how offensive it might be. And also realizing that cultural norms ebb and flow, but the truth is always going to be the truth. What is the truth anyway? What is the truth? It's such a slippery thing. You want to look very closely at the people who are taking you down that path. It's like, well, is there an objective truth? Is a man a man? Yes, a man is a man, and you can use male pronouns for men. And then the media stopped doing that. Media should be honest, even if it's unpopular. That's not the media anymore. Another example is when the media censors words. I say that because I read an article yesterday where the National Park Service, I guess I can find the article, was censoring the word S as in snake, dash, 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 dash. And they said it's just as offensive as some other word, N dash, dash, dash. And I thought, I really don't know what word you're referring to. Just use the words. You're the media. Report things fairly and accurately. The fact that we're at a point where the media says, yes, S dash 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 is so offensive that the Park Service isn't using it. Like who's running this media site? You shouldn't be censoring any words. You should, if you want to use them in quotations, which means you're not like kind of endorsing the use of the words, but you need to use the real words because we're not children. And you know, we don't live in North Korea or communist Russia but I mean, we're kind of headed that way, where the media, like when they start treating you like children, you should be very, very nervous. Another example, with the censoring words, it's a small bit of dishonesty. Like all these little things kind of add up with the pronouns and the censored words. It's like the S dash word is so offensive we can't repeat it. It's like you're probably able to repeat it last week, but now it's so offensive. Media should be fair and impartial in presenting the news. And then that started changing with the digital stories without providing, when they started changing the digital stories and they didn't provide archive links to the original stories to say, hey, here was where we changed the story. This is the original version in this hypertext. Click this for the original story. This is what we changed. They just changed stories. They changed headlines. They edit things on the fly. It's like, yeah, you should tell us and provide archive links if you want to be as fair and impartial as possible. When they started doing that, they started changing digital stories without telling the reader and then providing links. That was a very 1984 moment, or I guess a Fahrenheit 451 type of moment, to change and disappear a story as if it never was. Because it's also saying, like, they didn't make a mistake. The mistake never existed. It's a very dishonest, slippery slope the media is going on. The media is not the media. Media hasn't been the media in decades. Or when the media only described the accused if they're fair-skinned. Or I remember, I just saw Zimmerman was in the news again today. He's a crazy person, admittedly, and he's suing a bunch of people. And you look at him, he's a dark-skinned Mexican person, I guess, Latino, Hispanic, whatever you want to call that, mixed ancestry, but he's not a European white male, even though the media described him as such. And that was that was like 10 years ago. It was kind of it should have been an eye-opening media image when you look at him in some images and you see, just a little brown guy, and then in other images they turn up the gamma of the images as much as possible. They do it for Sean King too, but in reverse. They turned the gamma down to make him as brown as possible. You look at Zimmerman now, you're like, oh, this is just a Mexican guy. Why'd you call him a white Hispanic? It's like, this guy's clearly, because they have a narrative to push. Or they show the victims in cases, the cases of the gentle giants. It's like, well, you got security camera footage from that day. You could show that footage, showing him, the age he was when he was deleted for whatever one of these victims. Like, no, we're gonna show a photograph that's like 5 years old when he was a child. Why? Why don't you show his modern Facebook photographs? Because he's throwing up gang signs in one hand, and he's got a extended mag Glock in the other, and he's got like tattoos all over, and he's smoking a blunt. Oh, that's why you didn't show those photos. Yeah, the media's not honest. I mean, the media has not, like, even the concept of the media being honest is laughed at now. It has not been honest for a very long time. Anyway, so people started discovering Minds, Getter, Parler, and they've got less censorship, but there's still some hot topics that just cannot be discussed. So what's the point of going on these alt sites with less of an outreach, less censorship, but still censorship? It's like, why don't you just not have censorship at all, and if people don't want to view materials, they can just mute people or block people like you do across other social media platforms. The real story is these puppet masters who can make entire topics off limits. It's odd that the media doesn't find time to investigate a little bit more into Soros, Rothschilds, or Schwab's various machinations. It's weird. It's like they're the invisible men. They're like, could be standing right next to Justin Trudeau, and like Justin Trudeau's the topic, and this puppet master who's standing right next to him, like Emperor Palpatine or something. It's like, yeah, we're just not going to talk about that guy. It's like, it's really weird. Really weird. Who's pulling the strings of the media? And I guess it might be a conflict of interest for The Economist. It's a digital magazine, to investigate the Rothschilds. We investigated ourselves, and we found that we are awesome. He's a part owner in The Economist, in case you're not aware. And there's a lot of such stories. So there's no solution to any system when you have censorship. You have already conceded power to the censors. You're a slave on their battlefield. Why would adults need censors? Even on Twitter, I see these, I hear this discussion. Oh, free speech is great and all. We've got to have free speech, but no hate speech. I'm like, who determines what hate speech is? And then who determines what needs to be censored? How about we just have free speech, period? Why would the media defend censorship? That's kind of an easy answer, because they're really bad people. Trump looked at Gab, and he just could not pull the trigger on that. He couldn't stand up to the pressure that free speech entails. The media would have said that Gab is a site where people use naughty language, and they dare to call out the puppet masters who sign the media's checks and fly to Epstein's Island. If I was Trump, I just would have said, yeah, Gab is for free political speech. Anything goes. It is the open marketplace of ideas. On Twitter, you may criticize Russia and China. On Gab, you may criticize Russia, China, and Israel. Unfortunately, for some reason, that is a line in the sand for the media and for American politicians. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. So Trump needs to... Yeah, I buried that 13 minutes in the video. So the algorithm assigns less importance to it. So Trump needs to start his own Twitter for the MAGA crowd, which will go through the App Store, which will be censored, which is pointless, which makes Trump pointless. Either make a free speech app or just use Gab. The architecture is already in place, and it already has a customer base. All Trump's app does is destroy Getter, Parler, and Frank Talk, I think, is the pillow thing, and a bunch of others. It destroys anything that's milquetoast. It instantly puts them out of business, which is fine because they were censored ConOps anyway. But it also creates a ConOp echo chamber that dilutes the spectrum of the right. Gab has the full spectrum from moderate to far, or maybe third position, monarchy, I don't know what you'd call those, fash. Trump's site will not hurt Gab. In fact, as people get kicked off of Truth Social, they're going to come to Gab. Gab's got about 2 or 3 million users now. I think Getter has twice that, and Truth Social is probably going to have even more. It's funny, they call sites conservative groups, so they'll use that prefix for some groups, but how often will they call far right groups, and this is the far left media. So how often does the media refer to other groups as far left groups or left wing groups? Almost never. Almost never, because media is not the media. It's like in not They Live, but what was that movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers? The Chinese lady in Chinatown is going, "My husband is not my husband," trying to explain. God, that was a terrific movie. So Truth Social is a platform that the left wing won't use, or the media, or most politicians, or any of the far right, or anyone who's anti, well, that country in the Middle East that is not good to name too often if you value being on the mainstream platforms. Those people are already on Gab. So Trump has created this tiny little pointless ConOps area where nothing real ever gets discussed. It's also a collection of right-wing people who are saying that they accept censorship. They trust that the puppet masters will determine what is good for them, what ideas they may consume. A right-wing collection of sheep. All Trump had to do was say he proudly supports free speech and get on Gab. Trump is not that guy. He is just another pointless, grifting, ConOps red herring. He is no threat to the status quo. Where we're going, we have no room for normies. Trump is on one end of the Titanic. The left wing is on the other end. We can't even discuss a solution because both the left and the right are terrified of free speech. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support channel, can of coffee, and I will see you guys all next episode.